Aloha, Hariom, Namaste, Hotek in Lakesh, Asama Luego, Aho Matakuyasen. My name is Stephen Busher. A lot of people know me out there as Scooby Hugs, or my spiritual name goes as O Nama Scubaya. Today I have a really special guest, um, one of my best friends. Um, he did some really special things for me that I want to share, and he has a lot to share as well. We both share the same vision. We're both, and I don't know if I should say it now or maybe Leaf introduces it, but we both have a passion to end colonization because I seen it happen in Hawaii. I'm seeing it happen here in South America where these expats come and they're charging American prices for restaurants and yoga and other things. And they're trying to take over the culture here. And Leaf and I share the same passion. Before I get to Leaf talking, I want to tell you a little bit about how I met him. Many years ago, I was at a very low point in my life. I had just lost my wife and my children. And to be honest, to be authentic and vulnerable, I didn't think I was going to make it. And this guy told me, come with me to this festival called Tribal Visions, where you get to meet like Native American chiefs and people from all races and everything. And I had never been to that. I had, before being homeless, I was a network administrator working all the time in the IT industry. But then I went completely homeless for 2 years, couldn't speak, held a free hug sign, and um, one of the first festivals I was ever invited to was this Tribal Visions. Now, Leaf didn't know I was coming there. Leaf at the time was the manager. Tribal Visions was actually organized by a guy named Shatanya and another guy that Leaf will get into. Um, but it was like I was scared. I was embarrassed. My clothes didn't look good. Everybody's got like these festival clothes on. I got like a white dirty t-shirt and jeans. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act. To me, these people were like the coolest people I've ever seen. And a lot of cool artists, a lot of cool Native Americans. So the first thing I started doing was just making coffee and cleaning the kitchen. And yeah, and it took Leaf a little bit to warm up to me and Chaitanya. And then I'll get to this in a minute. I want to tell you a little later. I want Leaf to start talking about himself. Leaf, where were you born? Where did you come from?
Well, that's a segue. I come from my parents, man.
Wow.
There's a wild one, right? Yeah. And I was born in Virginia. It was pretty irrelevant. I only lived there for like 2 months, and then my parents moved to Georgia, and I was raised. They were teachers at a private uh, like not a small town. Rome is like 40 to 60,000, and it's more of like a micropolis. Like it has it's a county hub. But anyway,
Yeah.
so basically, I went to school at this private school. There it was the only private high school in the town, and like all the kids were the country club. It was kind of a trip. Very different lifestyle than I'm at now. And then every summer, my parents went to Maine and worked in a summer camp there. That's actually one of the oldest summer camps in the country. My dad was a counselor for 33 years and my mother for 27. So I actually
Wow.
grew up listening to this. I spent, like 0 to 6 years old, like with babysitters that would watch us. And then once I was 7, I was a camper. I was a camper from 7 to 10. And then over the next 10 years, I went back as a counselor many years, and I was a mountain trips counselor, art and ecology and campcraft. So it's all camping and hiking and stuff. But mostly I took kids backpacking. That was awesome, beautiful place. They just started like a week ago for their like 119th season, which is crazy. And
Wow.
really kind of a beautiful place. It shaped a lot of my foundations around nature and respect. And weirdly, they no longer use these. They changed the names of the teams to now birds, but they used to be Native American names. And so the first time I actually ever heard Native American names was at a summer camp. I was at Delaware, and there was Mohawks, Ojibways, and Indian and Senecas. And in many ways, it was really old school and a bit ignorantly racist. You know, you had all these kids with Indian names running around each other like tribes that didn't really interact with each other and stuff like that. And but then on the other side, it did actually bring some of us into some study. There were people and counselors that did get interested in the background and teach some of that. So at least it's like I knew what Native Americans existed and that they were out there. And It wasn't until much later, years later, I went to college at University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia. I got a degree in studio painting. After I graduated, I gave away all my oil paints because they're super toxic and switched to like non-toxic watercolor and started giving away all my artwork and working in gardens.
Wow.
And it's really into organic gardening and started working on this beautiful farm, which I wish I could give it a shout out, but Roots Farm is no longer in existence. But wow, it was really shaped a lot of people's lives and really shaped mine as like a young person. It's where I met people not getting like they were like having a beer or like a bowl that had been liberated, and they were like and their lives were so interesting. They had potlucks there every Wednesday night, and I would go to these potlucks, and it would blow my mind. And that's where I really started to hear all these different ideas. That was when I first heard about rainbow gatherings. That's where I first heard about. Well, I'd heard about through hiking Appalachian Trail, but I talked to a guy that it took 10 months to do it. He was like, "Oh, I just stopped and worked and hang out and like." You know, and so really these different alternative lifestyles I started to come across a little bit more. You know, that's where I started to get into yoga. Actually, yeah, I guess that's true. I got yoga there and yoga at the summer camp. Weirdly, there's these weird parallels that always cycle back around. And um, it's, you know,
Well,
I could forward to that all the way to where I met you would be like I went to college, these big breakthroughs, I had a whole spiritual breakthrough at 19. I wanted to drop out of college. My mother begged me not to. I graduate and then move forward. And in 2010, I graduated, had a yard sale where I pretty much I sold everything I had. Well, first I gave all my cool shit to any of my friends that wanted anything. And then I had a yard sale where everything was $1. And
wow.
my last like college art. And I was like, all right, universe, what should I do? And one of my friends was like, let's go to Burning Man. And I was like, well, that's not what I thought I was going to do, but okay, but I'm not coming back with you. So I went to Burning Man and then started traveling after that.
What's the weirdest shit you saw at Burning Man?
That was in like 2010. Uh, you know, people always like flash and pomp at Burning Man, but a lot of times it's like the little things that really like break through. You know, the big stuff's fun. Like an amusement park, it's like bring you back to being a little kid where everything's like larger than life. And there's a lot of idiots there getting really fucked up. And there's a lot of some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life on the playa. I could say the same for rainbow gatherings. Really amazing people and absolute mooch idiots. And but the reality is, like, you know, you can look this up and you look at healers, you look at philosophers, and like there's a black sheep in every family, and like what are you going to do? You only have a couple options, which is like kill, exile, or accept. So like if we're not going to exile people, kill people, then we need to accept people, and that becomes like a whole roundabout where like into acceptance. Well, what's the opposite of acceptance is colonization.
Right.
Complete takeover and subjugation, you know? And a lot of us do that to each other. We do it to our spaces, we do it to our communities. And so I started traveling because I was distraught. I found that there was not a lot of the beauty was so hidden. There was so much competition everywhere. And that's why I started traveling. And you know, so many people that claim to be connected with the earth were just like, I was like, so how do you, I want to get connected with the earth. And a guy looked at me and was like, Eustace Conway, you can look him up if you want, the last American man. Spent some time at Turtle Island, North Carolina. He looked at me and said, well, you spend time connected to the earth by standing on it. And then he revved up his chainsaw, you know, and had me get in the big rig. Like, you know, it's like the guy had so many machines and oil and everything everywhere. And like, talk about dichotomy, you know, and like, you know, the guy is so rootsy compared to most people, but also falls into a lot of the same things as most people: fame, fortune, uh, feeling like he was supposed to be this matriarch instead of and thinking that a matriarch or a patriarch is supposed to be served instead of
Right.
like instead of this space where like um I don't know if how it plays out because I'm not sure I've ever really seen it. Um, however, I have seen some small examples where people created really amazing communities. I mean, one of those is the one I was just talking about, the community of this camp, and it's now getting turned into a foundational nonprofit. And you know, 20% of the people are 20% of the kids are getting scholarship funding, and some of them full free rides because of alumni foundation into the campership program. I mean, the alumni is crazy. It's got an 85% retention rate for its staff, summer to summer. You know, and I don't really want to get into name dropping and stuff like that because I don't want to get into controversial subjects around that. And I am a controversial person, so and they're, I would say they're not, I would say they're much more nurturing and giving space. They don't need to get into the controversy. They've created a space to try and give as much as they can in what they believe, which is this beautiful mile of lake shorefront with tents and cabins and 100-year-old trees, and kids jump and swim in the water and canoe and cook on fires and like eat together meals every night and sleep together in tents. It's
Right.
really it's an amazing organization. It's actually an amazing example for how a real community could work. However, it is funded by extremely wealthy individuals. Most of the kids that can afford to go there for 7 weeks, like if I actually knew their parents' names, you would be able to look most of them up. Wealthy
What
CEOs.
I've
I
really,
camper. One of my co-tent, one of the kids in my tent, his mother was the fucking producer for like the 7 o'clock news on CNBC. You know, it was just like, oh my gosh, you know, it's like. So anyway, there's a little bit about me. I went traveling in 2010. I started traveling. I went from farm to farm, spiritual centers. Some of them are super far out. Oh my gosh, like I stayed at a Urantian center, but it was so beautiful. There, I met a channel of Ramana Maharshi. I met a woman who had never gardened before, quit her job during her second Saturn return, gave up everything, moved to Peru to study Quechuan shamanism for 5 years, and then moved back to Oregon and was there, like living in this little beautiful space. And she was growing this garden. She'd never gardened before and was doing everything off the Findhorn method, which is like muscle testing connect with the devas of the land. If you don't know about that and you're interested in far out farming, look up the Findhorn method. It's an absolutely breathtaking story. It's mind blowing, and they have records, and it's still a permanent community. But again, I believe they were able to create a school. And so a lot of times there's something that's funding these communities, you know, an internal mechanism that people believe in together that they need to keep sustaining together to live. And thus the community is created off of itself. When you have multiple, anyway, that's like tangenting into different parts. But so I traveled from all these communities to each other. I saw ones that really failed. I saw ones that were working. All the ones that were working, like I said, either a loose jointment of friends that had like lands connected and they all had their own thing going on, or it was something that was like really uniform. I mean, there's this one community that was like barely hanging on, and like they have this story that's like kind of beautiful, but there's this side story that I met other people. I met this guy, Chris Bliss, and he had been there, and he had been a young kid. And these two people there named Larry and Luna were like, hey, community, let's start a coconut vegan ice cream business and support the community. And the community was like, no, no, that's stupid. And Chris Bliss was like, this sounds awesome, I'm in. And those three became like multi-millionaires. Oh my God, off vegan ice cream. And the dude was awesome. I met him back in 2015 at the Hanuman Yoga Festival, weirdly enough, because of a farm that I had worked at 2 years before for a guy whose daughter was the personal chef of the Coconut Bliss team and did their summer tours. And she hit me up and was like, you want to come work in the booth at the Hanuman Festival? I just gave away free ice cream to all my friends. It was awesome, and they paid me.
Well,
So,
one
you
thing I
know,
want to talk about, I
the
hate to
role.
cut you off, but it's so important because when people hear, oh, I met you at a festival or gathering called Tribal Visions, and like you mentioned Burning Man, you mentioned Rainbow, Tribal Visions is its own entity. It's not a wild party, it's not a rainbow gathering. I had never seen anything like that. It's actually very ceremonial. So, and I didn't know this going there. My friend Joe Saverio, he said, "Come with me," and it was really embarrassing because I looked like shit. I looked like homeless, and
Where was
we didn't have any tickets or money. And I don't know if it was you I talked to or Shatanya, but somehow we said would volunteer, and that was the first time. And I actually haven't seen too many gatherings like this. It's not a crazy electronic music festival. It's not a rainbow gathering. It's a lot of ceremony. And that's what made Tribal Visions different. And I didn't know what to do at first. So I started serving all the Native Americans coffee. And I remember you and Shatanya, you were like the manager or administrator, and he was kind of running everything. They looked at me, you both looked at me, and they said, he is the Baba. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that I had to keep serving coffee. And what was remarkable was everybody at that festival accepted me. And yeah, they do have music like Seraphine and Starwater Collective. So they did have a stage. And you know what they did? They brought me on stage and I got to perform with them and act and play. And I had never had that opportunity in my life. And it completely changed from going almost suicidal to like, there's no hope for me, to going to a ceremonial gathering. I wouldn't call it a festival, to be accepted by all these people, to be actually be brought on stage and help perform in their plays and stuff. It changed my life around to where I had a different belief in my system. And I saw you some other times. I saw you at an Indian reservation. You could talk about that story. We were building a structure, a geodesic dome, and I fell off a ladder and knocked out four of my teeth. You could probably tell it better than I could.
Well, we're just gonna jump right into you falling off a ladder. I mean, what do you where do you want me to start with it?
Well, I mean, what was most important to me when that happened, I was in complete shock and there was a blizzard. And so they put me in a teepee. And I don't know if you remember or not, you held my hand probably for 8 hours.
Dude,
And
8 hours?
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
Dude. I don't remember that at all. But it was a wild time, man. Everything there was about prayer, everything there was about prayer.
Yeah. But that's what I appreciated. Tribal Visions was a different entity. It's not Electric Forest, it's not Burning Man, it's not Rainbow. I believe they let anybody that was an elder of a Native American tribe in for free. I was able to get in to volunteer, and it really changed my life around. And that's what I want to tell my viewers is you could be at the toughest place in your life where that looks like there's no way out, but there's somebody out there that cares about you. And this man cared about me enough. I think he was a little judgmental at first. But that festival, after that, I started going festival to festival to festival. And then I started DJing, and no longer was I homeless. I had a nice house. I was DJing at the biggest nightclubs in Denver. It changed my complete life around because not only did I go to this ceremonial festival, Tribal Visions, I participated with all my intention and all my heart because at that point in my life, I had nothing else to believe in. And I honor you and respect you for giving me that chance to come into that festival at that time. We also have a weird wherever you go, I'm usually 2 weeks behind you. Like you lived at Bob Wonder's house, Wonder Bob in Crestone, and you had just left, and then I moved in there. It's called the Mystic Mountain Retreat House. It's a 10-bedroom Airbnb, and it's just like
There for like, yeah.
yeah, you and I cross paths a lot. We've seen each other in different places. Um,
You crossed in with a lot of that Front Range community. Like, the Tribal Vision community tied me in with a lot of different people. And weirdly enough, even though I'm way less connected with it than I have been in the past, but also it's kind of going in different directions, and it's been way more locally
yeah,
based in just the last several years and much smaller. And like that's kind of its direction this year again. And
that's
really, like
great.
into the whole tribal vision stuff, you got to talk about Che. But as for like accepting people, like to be honest, like I don't think it would have been possible for me to judge you when I first met you. You were probably one more volunteer on like a super stressed shoulders of a producer. And like that year, Che and I basically ran everything, and other people came in, and we were like pulling people in and here to be like coordinators of this, of that, and so it was a small festival, but there was a lot going on, and we'd spent months, like 3 months, building it
Great.
nonstop, like tons of hours a day, and growing a garden to feed people. So, I mean but that was what, like 2016, I think.
What was your
And
first year then?
my first year was in 2015, but that was in Taos. That was in Tres
How?
Piedras.
Yeah, I met you in 2016. I had just left the Arise Music Festival, which was also pretty traumatic for me because people judged me. Somebody took my backpack with all my cool festival clothes, and I looked completely homeless, and they almost didn't let me in the festival. But Zoe Starwater of the Starwater Collective, she's like, let's play a joke on this festival, and I ended up DJing at the end of the festival, and people realized who I was. And that's the funny thing about like what people wear, their perception. Perception is everything, and maybe we can change that. But this video series that we're doing, Faces of Unity, is really just like connecting with people all over the world to learn about each other, to learn how they grew up, because the things we hear about Israel, Germany, South America, Mexico, Peru, we only hear that from the news. And to be honest, and with pure vulnerability, when I first came to this international hostel, I was scared because there's sometimes we have 34 beds. There's people from every country, and I didn't know how to connect. And one day I bought some music instruments, and I started inviting people to play pool and DJ music and cooking together. And I have never been to a place anywhere in my life where we are so diversified. Everybody's from many different countries, but we come together with peace, love, and unity. And that's my vision to show to the world. But also, I am really upset about the colonization that's happening. I saw it happen in Hawaii, And now I'm actually meeting people that admit that they're opening restaurants or yoga retreat centers. And they said, well, what's different about our place is we're going to charge American prices. And I don't say, how dare you at first. I want to, but I want to study them more. And I'm making this video series and I'm making a reality show and a book. And I'm listing them out because I am so against colonization. I want Peru to stay the same way it was. You can get a cheeseburger for under $3, and now they're selling
But
cheeseburgers for $15.
yeah, yeah. It used to be that you couldn't get cheeseburgers there.
Right.
You know, the
But
cheeseburgers are the organization. So are the asphalt roads and all the cars and the buses. You know, everything is like mechanized now. Like Western civilization has taken over, and so colonization also implies like hardcore power from another place. So it's like if there's still big industries that are like ruling things and running how like the governments operate, which is what you're getting all through, not just the Central Americas, but well, everywhere in the world, really. You know, everywhere is native subjugation. It just depends how long ago did it start, you know? And it
right,
has its, and, you know, colonization is so big. It's like people just don't even realize that they have. That's the whole thing. Is like we're so ignorant. We're so ignorant in America because it's all beautiful in front of us. And people are like, "What do you mean it's all beautiful?" I'm like, "Dude, you do not even understand what beggars outside of an Indian temple can be like in a major city, especially if it's a festival. Oh my God, hundreds of them lined up. The most maimed and hurting, painful looking people I have ever seen. It is so sad to see people in this state, you know." And people don't
right.
realize like all these things like you know, like the Shriners Hospital literally fixed like thousands of cleft palates and facial deformities in the United States that don't get fixed in third world countries. You know, like all these things happen here that's more available to us: dental care, hygiene, clean clothes. But like a t-shirt, if everyone is making a sustainable wage, and a living wage means that after you work for a week of 40 hours a week, you can pay for that week's everything and have extra money. That's sustainable living. You can pay for your rent, you can pay for your food, you can pay for your medical, and you can have a little bit extra for something, you know? And so people just don't have that. People don't have that at all. They're working so hard just to make the basic needs get met in so many countries. And we have it so easy here, and people don't even realize it. And what we get for the hours we put in and how easy our hours are, you know, is there. You know, I pulled a card weirdly before I sat on. What's this interview about? This is from an Egyptian-inspired tarot, Eternal Tarot. I swear I did not. This is actually random, okay? It's the card Patrimony.
Oh,
You know,
what an interesting card to pick.
patrimony as an act of continuity symbolizes the human virtue of possession by inheritance. And that's why we have the wealth we have: possession by inheritance of things the people before us stole. And now we're like, well, we didn't chop people up bloody, so let us keep it. And it's like, well, wait a second. Like, if those people came and killed you, would you think it's cool for your kids to go kill those people? And you'd be like, damn right. And then like it's
Right.
like, okay, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And then colonial boundaries all over are creating more things. Like racism is not about black and white people in the United States. Racism has become trans universal. Like you can go everywhere and here you can go to Costa Rica and hear them complaining about the dirty Nicaraguans sneaking across their border for free healthcare. That's a quote. Nicaraguans are beautiful. They're not dirty. Any more dirty than the rest of us. I mean, we're all pretty dirty on this planet at this point, you know, from whatever. But the reality is all these lines create more boundaries and barriers, which is a part of colonization. Like we can't really upthrow colonization as long as we have boundaries. And that's like I don't mean boundaries like don't hurt me or like this is our area we're tending. But like as long as we're like, no, these are our trees, you go starve over there, then we're gonna fight. And if
Yeah.
you're not
I
willing
mean,
to share it, you're starving and they come take your stuff, then like what do you think's gonna happen? And so like it's like we want to build this wall of Mexico. Can we imagine what would happen if all of South America actually went into some like crazy shit and we had a wall? Then Mexico would be coming right through that wall to come take us over. A bunch of flabby fat Americans who get destroyed by North Mexican like farmers, dude. You know, especially if their government actually gave them all their military. You know, our American military complex, whole other story, but like that's the top of it, man. Our government, our military, the big military powers control colonization. I mean, look what's happening right now. Like all these things make a huge difference. I'm talking to my friend, one of my friends in India. I talked to him 2 days ago. He told me that because of the embargoes and the tariffs that Trump's put up, gasoline is more expensive in India. We did the conversions. It took a second. Could go rupee to gallon, rupee liter, gallon to dollar. You know, but they're spending like they had like 15-20 cents more per gallon than we are. You know, and that's
right.
crazy. They're making way less money than we are on average.
Well, that's the
So
purpose of this YouTube channel, Faces of Unity, is not only about like ending colonization, but ending hate and racism. Um, Especially with like you wouldn't believe the things that I see on my social media about Israel. I live in an international hostel, and some of these Israelis are the nicest people I've ever met. When I didn't have any food, they cooked food for me. They played the most beautiful music, and all you hear in America is they kill everybody, and it's propaganda, and it needs to stop. And we're at the day of age where we have fast internet. Everybody watches TV. People are going to watch these reality shows. And that's why I'm doing this now because I want to. I don't know about how much of an impact I'm going to have, but people need to see because all they see about people from other countries is what they see on the news. And
can I
that
tell you
is
what?
why I'm interviewing people from I mean, every country I can to show, we all get along. And what you hear on the news, just not in the United States, but all around the world, most of it is propaganda and it's not true. And I need to show people what we're like when we all work together, because I think there is a chance for world peace. And right now, the world's going in a different direction, and I will devote my life to world peace. And that's why I'm creating this video series, the reality show, a book, and some other things. Um, and I just want people from all nations, all creed, all religions. That's what Aho Mitakuye means. That we are all related. We are all the same. And that needs to come back into fruition, back into our understanding, our understanding as humans, that we are all humans. And yes, there's some bad ones, but what I'm seeing is most people have a really good heart.
Yeah, yeah. If they are allowed to.
You know, Leaf, you made such an impact on my life. You don't realize, and I don't know if you don't remember a lot of the stories, but I have a challenge for my viewers. If I can get 1,000 subscribers in 2 weeks, I will fly Leaf to Peru so he can see the culture here again. And I just want to see you again, um, because I love you, brother. You made such an impact for me. But that's my challenge for my viewers out there. It's not hard because viewing something is one thing. Clicking subscribe doesn't cost you anything. So just hit that subscribe button. Help us out. Help bring Leaf to Peru. And we'll go on some cool hikes. We'll have a good time. We'll make videos. Um, and we'll talk more about like we have the same passion against colonization, racism, and hate. Um, I actually had to warn him about this video not to like scream and yell because both of us are at that level that Here's a story that's hard
I'll
for
be
me to
honest.
share.
I'm going to interrupt you, Scooby. I'm going to interrupt you
Yeah.
because we've said this a couple times, and I'm just going to kibosh it because I don't like that statement, and I'm going to disagree with it 100%. I do not have a passion to stop colonization. I think colonization is a bigger problem. That is a thing out there. My passions are much more about building things like community and farming, connection with the earth. And if people are disconnected from the earth, doesn't matter. I just have a passion for understanding the world, and I understand that colonism is a place that is in structure and it is intact. I have a passion for trying to stop it. Like that would take like a large scale revolution or like a growing, massive, probably hundreds of years slow change for a social revolution. They don't social revolutions don't typically happen overnight, or you get assassinated. So it's like
Well, I have the same view, and something else I want to share to the viewers is
huh?
99% of the monetization that I make from these videos, the reality show and the book, I'm not keeping personally. I'm going to be building communities all around South America and the world. Um, and they're probably going to be free as long as you're drug, alcohol free, and you can attend our workshops so you can learn things about sustainable living, because I think people need this opportunity. And that's my world passion. I don't need to be a millionaire. I'm comfortable living like this. I'd like to eat a little better and have some better bed sheets, but most of the money that we make when we become monetized from these videos, the reality show, and the book is all going to build communities all around the world. So people have this chance.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think more ideas have to come together. I mean, I think people talk about the festivals, and um, I could talk for hours about festivals. And at the end of the day, I'm kind of done with them. I still think they should be happening, but I really think that they're a great introductory space. They help like bring people into places, and then like smaller group things, like we could also call them festivals, but like things that are like help create community. But like tribal vision, 500 plus people or bigger, doesn't create local community. It creates large scale connections across a bioregion, and it
Right.
connects people that are really far away into it and stuff like that. But like when it does something that's really local, then everyone there is like from, a 2 hour drive, and then real community connections start creating. So we have this different level, but we call all of them festivals. Like Burning Man and Bonnaroo of like 100,000 plus people. They're people from all over the world. Does it create community? Yes, but very different community. Very different community. And
Different completely.
and but community still all in those places. One of the biggest things that festivals do, and they do well, and it's something that Burning Man does really well, is freedom of self-expression and acceptance. And acceptance isn't like, okay, fine, I won't kick your ass. Acceptance is like, oh wow, like you're doing this thing, I should
Right.
probably do that, even if I don't appreciate it, even if I don't understand how to appreciate it or what it is. And like not having this mindset that if we don't get something, it's stupid and worthless. Realizing that everything that people are doing has value. Everyone's moving towards happiness. Everyone is a egg that is trying to hatch out of years of trauma. Everyone is living in a patrimonial trauma. There's very few people who grow up with complete love and nurturance around them in big communities, and the ones that do, their communities are getting attacked and destroyed at this point. And I'm talking about indigenous communities that are still living in indigenous ways. That's not to say that our communities don't have love within inside them. My childhood, luckily, was very loving. My mother, my grandparents. I have my father was loving, but he maybe wasn't as present. But he's still there in my life. He's still been very supportive. And so there's a lot of places still like, and even now, if I have a real issue, like if I get hurt and can't pay for myself, if I had to do that, I could call my parents and be like, "Oh my God," and they'd be like, "Of course we'll help you," and So it's there. Like I have gotten lucky. I grew up in communities that had support, and I saw real support, and I also saw the traumas trapped within some of these communities that continue to fester and birth
Right.
more demons, if you will, that would
Yeah,
plague
I
the.
like
So
I
if we're
just
not
wish there were
places, well,
more.
we go to
Oh, sorry.
PSAC. It'll look like PSAC will look like Scooby. Like you can go to those places in the United States that if I like just dropped you there and spun you in a circle and I was like, "Where are you?" You'd be like, United States," because you'd look around and it'd be like a PetSmart and a McDonald's and like uh gosh, what like a Container Store, a World Market, right? We have all these like big mega stores now, and there's not just like a couple of them. We have so many nationwide stores, and then they all get dropped in these like complexes, right? These like outdoor malls, and everywhere you go in the United States, I could drop you in like any major town, any
Right.
major city, anywhere with over 100,000 people, and those are the part where if you stand there and just turn, even if you've never been to that city before, you're going to know like 75% of the businesses. And like if we're not careful, that'll be everywhere. It's everywhere. It's like, but I hear people go like, "Oh, I went to Peru. I was surprised. They had a lot more than I thought." I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Oh, they had a Starbucks and they had a KFC." And I was like, "Oh my God, I hate you."
It's
You
good
know?
stuff. Not here, PSAC. PSAC's very sacred. I've never seen anything like it.
They're
Um,
actually a Starbucks in the Sacred Valley, but it's not franchised. And you gotta hike up. If you go hiking through the mountains north, it's like this trail going up out of the coffee region, and
okay.
go up around, and there's a little stand in the middle of nowhere that says Starbucks. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh, it's a total knockoff. It's just locals being funny.
Yeah. I mean, one of the main points I want to get to is I wish there were more gatherings like Tribal Visions because I have a lot of issues with Rainbow now. I've seen some terrible things in the United States that's not like Rainbow outside of the United States. At Burning Man, I was a DJ, and I remember I played for 19 hours straight at Center Camp, and I put every letter up my nose of the alphabet. And there's communities at these places, but I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to be more ceremonial, more of an example to the people. And that's what brought me to the Sacred Valley because there's no other place like this in the world. And I don't know if it's because they sell ayahuasca, mushrooms, San Pedro, Wachuma, Changa, and several stores. It's legal here. I don't know if what that makes the people peaceful, but there's something about this area that is just so profound and beautiful. And that's why I love it here in the Sacred Valley, Pisac, Peru. I think I lost Leaf's video, but that was a good interview. He's an important person of mine. And I'm serious. If I can get 1,000 subscribers, we're gonna bring Leaf out here. And there's something that Leaf didn't share. He might get upset with me, but he's not on here right now. He went to a rainbow gathering in Africa and got some kind of parasite. And he's been to several hospitals. He's in severe medical attention. That's why I want to bring him out here while he has time. And so I know he's not on the recording right now. He didn't want me to mention this, but I had to. Let's all have a prayer for Leaf that this somehow miraculously heals. And I apologize for Leaf for mentioning this. It's an odd thing that many doctors have never heard of. He's been to several hospitals. Um, but I pray for his life. And I want to say that Yahweh, 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 Yeshua, Ganesha, Om Gang Gang Ganapatiye Namahalo Ka'a Samasa Sukino Vavantu. Om Shanti 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 Om. We pray for Leaf. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us. And we need some sponsors. We're just getting started. And we are Faces of Unity. Thank you for joining us today. Aloha. Oh, God.